The U.S. Department of Energy is cleaning up the Oak Ridge Reservation of residual hazardous and radioactive contamination left over as a result of decades of nuclear energy research. Much of that work has been influenced by the Oak Ridge Site-Specific Advisory Board, a citizens panel that provides independent advice and recommendations on DOE's cleanup operations. You're welcome to attend the meetings and be part of this important work. For more information, call us or visit our website.
We want to open tonight on the August the 9th, 2023 meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone for attending tonight, especially in person. Please hang around for a few moments right after our meeting. We're going to get a group photo for Miss Shelley. We'll turn straight over to Miss Melissa.
Good evening. We're grateful to have you here tonight, and we're thankful for your time and commitment to the board. Before I start my comments, I'd like to take an opportunity to honor outstanding board members who will be leaving us following the chairs meeting in October, and that is Michelle Lohman, Leon Shields, Bonnie Shoemaker, who couldn't be here tonight, and John Tapp. All four are leaving the board having completed the maximum 3 terms, which is 6 years, the maximum is allowed by the Federal Advisory Committee Act. These exceptional individuals have served in a wide variety of leadership positions, both at the board and the committee level, and they represent the very best example of selfless dedication to their communities. During their service, they have been instrumental in every area of the board, writing recommendations, interacting with the community, representing the board at national meetings and conferences, and of course, spending endless hours attending and providing leadership at the ORSSAB meetings. There's no way to adequately acknowledge the many contributions these individuals have made during their time on the board, but I would like for them to know that their contributions were appreciated and that we have helped shape the path of the EM program and has followed in its goal to clean up the Oak Ridge reservations. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. With this being the annual planning meeting, I felt like it was a good time to commend you on the year we've had. It's been very strong for the SSAB. We're back to full strength with our membership. We've been able to resume our normal scheduled meetings, and that's given us an opportunity to cover our most pressing work and meet regularly and keep you updated on what's happening. We've also pleased to provide more tours this year to get you in the field. Those trips have given a better perspective and deepened the board's understanding about our work. We appreciate the focus and energy that each of you have put into attending and participate in our meetings and our tours. Also, we're hosting the National Chairs meeting in October, which is kind of a big deal. So it's an excellent opportunity. Normally it's chair and vice chair who attend that on your behalf, but this will be a perfect time for any of the members who would like to come in and see what happens with an EM stewardship with the chairs meeting, and also kind of help get you ready in the event that you move into one of the positions that go and attend those meetings. We're committed to making your membership on the SSAB as impactful as possible. We'll cover our near-term priorities, and we'll continue making tours available to get an up-close look at the cleanup progress that's happening at our sites. Also have a few quick updates to share since our last meeting in June. We had our groundbreaking event for the Environmental Management Disposal Facility on August 2nd. U.S. Representative Fleischman, Lieutenant Governor Randy McAnally, and leadership from headquarters, EPA, and TDEC were all there in attendance. It was a big success, and it gave us the opportunity to celebrate the partnership that made the project possible. The groundbreaking marks the start of early site prep for the MDF project. That phase involves creating laydown areas, rerouting utilities, and moving roads. After that, we'll begin on the groundwater field demonstration study. Our crews are continuing to make progress at ORNL. One of our top priorities for 2023 is the demolition of the low-intensity test reactor in the central campus area. That project is scheduled for completion in fall. The crews are at the very end of that project, and it marks the second reactor we've taken down in the span of a year. We're making great headway on the new base of operations for our cleanup crews at Y12. That will give hundreds of workers the space and infrastructure they need in close proximity to the biggest cleanup projects we have on the horizon. The new base of operations should be completed this summer. We're also very proud of our workforce development efforts that have really taken off in recent years. We have several fellows that have joined our federal staff. UCOR also has its largest class of interns this year. They have 40 students from 14 schools across the country. This is a way to give great opportunities and also raise awareness about our program. Thank you again for your attendance. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the next speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Petrie, any comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Christoph,
No comments.
anyone online from EPA?
Yes, this is Samantha Urquhart Foster. I've got no comments. I appreciate all the work that you guys have put into making this a great working environment.
Thank you so much for attending tonight. So we'll go straight to the OREM program overview with Ms. Aaron Sutton. Or let Amy read the bio here for a second.
Aaron Sutton serves as the Director of the Quality and Mission Support Division of the Department of Energy, Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management. She oversees activities including quality assurance, regulatory and environmental compliance, reindustrialization, and community outreach. Her career includes more than 20 years of experience working with multiple federal and state environmental regulatory agencies and private sector environmental services companies.
Thank you for Ms. Campbell. Thank you for coming. You have the floor.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'd like you to all know it's an honor to be out here supporting the largest voluntary cleanup in the state of Tennessee, and most importantly, to serve the citizens, the local citizens here during this process. You know, public and private stakeholders coming together on a regular basis is extremely important to DOE, so that we're able to report on progress as well as targeting areas that could benefit from more enhanced communication. It's so important to have such a diverse board that each of the agencies are represented in public representation to support this effort. And I'm sincerely grateful for all of you sitting around this table and all of you guys online also. So next slide. Okay. I'm going to begin with a little background regarding the Department of Energy's Office of Environmental Management. This branch of the department is one of three locally here in Oak Ridge. Has been charged with addressing the environmental legacies and contamination associated with nuclear sites across the United States. There are 15 sites where we've got Superfund cleanup going on. And here we've got 15 sites up here. They're all marked with stars here. And each of the sites is varied. The work is varied, but generally includes maintaining safe, secure, compliant areas, disposition of transuranic and mixed low-level waste, remediation of soil and groundwater, as well as deactivation and demolition of excess facilities. The Oak Ridge is actually one of three original sites in the Manhattan Project. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers began acquiring land here in Oak Ridge in October of 1942. Throughout the following decades, the three sites, East Tennessee Technology Park, formerly named K-25, purified isotopes, during the Manhattan Project. We also have the Oak Ridge National Lab and the Y-12 National Security Complex. These activities created environmental legacies that placed the reservation on the EPA's National Priorities List in 1989. So our main focus here is on protecting human health and the environment while enabling critical DOE missions. We've got the Y-12 National Security Mission, as well as the ORNL lab, and also making clean land available for use and giving that land back to the community to help support the local economy at ETTP. Here, take another look at our 32 acres reservation here. Three main campuses are East Tennessee Technology Park. Here we've got about 15% of the land available that is to be slated to be transferred back to the community. for productive reuse. So we've come a long way at ETTP, and we still have a lot of work to go. We also have the Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the Y-12 National Security Complex. And EM's mission at those two campuses is focused mostly on doing environmental cleanup so that the two Office of Science and an NSA can use that property productively. So here we can see that while the Department of Energy has invested considerable amount of money for protection of human health and the environment, it's also important here to know that it contributes significantly to the economy. So here we've got our budget. We got 2020, 2021 on up. We have, on the order of, on average, $640 million a year spent on cleanup. And then focusing on the economy here, we have altogether $7.2 billion worth of economic impact to the state of Tennessee here in this region. We also produce 442,906 jobs. But when we look at EM and how EM impacts the economy, it's $1.3 billion and generates 400 million in personal income. So the DOE has a significant economic impact on the region. So back to ETTP here, Oak Ridge was the first site in the world to remove the former uranium enrichment complex. We succeeded in addressing the hazards associated with hundreds of facilities. Oak Ridge became the first site to work in the world to remove a former enrichment complex, which involved removing nearly 500 structures spanning a total footprint of 13 million square feet. Now, the trained and experienced crews responsible for this historic accomplishment are busy deactivating and demolishing excess contaminated facilities at Y-12 and ORNL. It's anticipated that 400 additional structures will be removed in these two complexes in the next 20 plus years. At ETTP, DOE's work has transformed the former enrichment site into a multi-use industrial center, national park, and conservation area. DOE has successfully cleared away all previous facilities, transferred 1,300 acres to the community for economic development, and are attracting new investments and new businesses in the region. DOE is also transferring 3,500 acres of the Black Oak Ridge Conservation Easement to the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency in the coming few years. We have many important projects here at Y-12 and ORNL also. While building demolition soil remediation is ending at ETTP, work is transitioning to ORNL and Y-12, where DOE has a tremendous amount of demolition to tackle. This will reduce the risks and enhances the health and safety of workers and the public. Y-12, massive deteriorating buildings are being torn down, and infrastructure that will remove sources of mercury contamination from the environment is being built. At ORNL, DOE is demolishing contaminated facilities, eliminating waste inventories, and removing radiological risks. Currently, there are more than 350 excess facilities at these two campuses that will take more than 2 decades to complete. On a more recent note, as Melissa had mentioned, national, state, and local leaders joined DOE this past week to celebrate the groundbreaking for the Environmental Management Disposal Facility, or EMDF. This is a $550 million project that will provide a new on-site disposal facility that is essential to maintain the environmental cleanup momentum. DOE is complying with all federal and state requirements, and it is also incorporating numerous engineering features into this facility's design under the oversight of both EPA and TDEC to ensure that the waste is handled in a protective manner. Additionally, DOE will continue sending all highly contaminated waste out of state for disposal. DOE's project at Y-12 continue to eliminate risks and support the ongoing national security missions. Demolition of the former biology complex last year cleared the land for Y-12 to construct a new facility to support the national security missions. Continuing on with Y-12, crews continued demolition preparation efforts for Beta 1, Alpha 2, and Alpha 4 former Manhattan Project area facilities. These excess contaminated structures pose risks at the site and stand on land that can be reused to support national security missions in the future. Cleanup of Alpha 5 and Beta 4 are dependent upon NNSA's West End Protection Area Reduction Project. That project will reroute portions of the high security area around Y-12's mercury contaminated buildings, allowing enhanced access for cleanup crews and reducing future cleanup costs by more than 40%. Speaking of mercury, DOE is currently building the Outfall 200 mercury treatment facility to reduce mercury levels in East Fork Poplar Creek and enable large-scale cleanup and demolition at Y-12. DOE is investing upward of $100 million to push this water treatment plant to completion to support continued remediation. ORNL is DOE's largest multi-program national laboratory and is one of the nation's largest, most important research assets. While researchers there are conducting world-leading research in modern facilities on the east and west ends of campus, there are numerous deteriorating and contaminated former research reactors and excess isotope production facilities in the heart of ORNL campus that date back to the 1950s. These projects will eliminate the risk at the site, clear land for future research missions, and enhance access to the graphite reactor, which is a component of the Manhattan Project National Historic Park. At ORNL, work is also progressing on the disposition of the large inventory of uranium-233. Through a public-private partnership, DOE's contractor Isotech is extracting thorium-229 for next-generation cancer research at TerraPower. The remaining material requires processing to convert it to a form that can be shipped off-site for disposal. Eliminating this material is OREM's highest priority at ORNL, since it drives the security posture at the site. Employees will process the remaining inventory using the hot cells in buildings 2026. Processing of the remaining materials expected to be completed in 2028. The Department of Energy has made significant progress in creating tangible benefits for Oak Ridge. Reindustrialization efforts are transforming ETTP and the surrounding areas to deliver prime industrial park space, creating a brand new national park, and expanding conservation areas such as the Bourse. Cleanup at ORNL and Y-12 is focused on reusing land in a protective manner to support research, defense, and security missions. Moving forward, DOE continues to actively work towards addressing the environmental legacy left behind from the Manhattan Project while giving back to the community that it has supported for decades. Thank you.
Thank you. So group, we're going to go directly into the work plan topics. If you will, please hold your questions or comments to the end of the presentations. Mr. Rogers, is it okay if we start with you?
That'd be fine. Thank you. So what Aaron just described was the overview. There was a lot there. I understand that. So what we're going to try to do is narrow that down to 5 simpler topics to present to you. The first one, and these are in no, these are not in any particular order, but they are numbered 1 through 5. So the first area is, as Aaron mentioned earlier, is excess contaminated facilities reduction. Roughly, give you a little background, roughly 9 years ago, the Department of Energy nationwide did an inventory of all their facilities they have across the country, trying to get their arms around the idea of, how much work do we have to do and how hard will it be? They went across, this include Hanford, Los Alamos, Idaho, all the Paducah, Portsmouth. The majority of the excess contaminated facilities are, well, they were all ranked as to the level of risk they present. The majority of what they consider high-risk facilities are here in Oak Ridge, predominantly at ORNL and Y12. As we mentioned, most of all the facilities have been removed from ETTP now, so that one fell off the table. But there's a lot of work, the work that Aaron described, the demolition of the large alpha and beta buildings at Y12, a lot of support facilities that supported those buildings. And then at ORNL, the removal of the reactor facilities, but also a lot of other support facilities like Isotope Row, things like that at ORNL. So that's one area that we like to focus on. Many of you who've been here for more than 1 or 2 years, this is a regular topic for us because it is a large part of our programs, the D&D activities. Next topic is, as we said, is ensuring that we have sufficient waste disposal capacity. The main part of this is both our current on-site disposal facility, EMW map, and our planned and what we just started was the future EMDF facility. But it also includes other things like some of you remember, we actually have 3 other landfills on the reservation that are normal, relatively normal, permitted landfills like your normal sanitary landfill that the city sends your household waste to. And then we have, as we go through this, we have our waste hierarchy, and it's ensuring that we can maintain our offsite disposal capacity, both in Nevada and Utah and West Texas. And that involves making sure that we send the appropriate waste to the appropriate site. Y12 itself has had incidents in the past where if you send the wrong thing there, they cut you off for a while until you can get things straightened out. And that's part of the reason on-site disposal is so critical for us. It's the idea of losing off-site disposal, the danger of losing off-site disposal. If everything had to go out there, we'd be in the middle of a project and another state might just say, you can't send anything for a while. It would be devastating to our cleanup efforts. That's another topic. Third one, and this is one that we've just recently gone through, is for you all to provide your input on our budget requests. What do you think is important for us to fund? What projects in EM in our cleanup program do you feel are necessary? And one of the things we covered when we talked about this earlier was to make sure that the recommendations are focused on what EM is doing. Aaron pointed out, DOE has a large presence in Oak Ridge, a huge presence. That our focus here is to look at the cleanup program, the EM's functions. So work through that and get your input on that. And then we send that to headquarters with our budget proposal. Fourth, and this is why one I find very interesting, is the aquatic research. For those who've been on the tour, this is over at ORNL, Dr. Terry Matthews and her group. They do the research on mercury in Upper East and East Fort Poplar Creek, looking at mercury cycle in the environment and trying to find ways that, the more we understand about how mercury cycles through the environment, the better chance we have of finding a reasonable solution to correcting the problems out there. Right now, we do not have a cost-effective and practical solution to clean up East Fork. There are ways you could do it, but it would be prohibitively expensive and time-consuming. So that one is, in my opinion, is one of the more interesting things that is going on. And then the last is groundwater, and the main plant groundwater ETTP. I would sort of expand on this and say that it's also the K3133. As we talked here recently, we actually have 2 records of decision that have been submitted to the regulators for their review and approval. And one being a final remedy for groundwater at K3133. The other is the interim rod for groundwater at the main plant area. And that one is, that's the one that addresses the 6 large plumes of VOCs and the main plant area. So that one will be a very very involved, long-term project that will probably go on for a number of years. So, we will keep you updated on that. Appreciate your feedback on that. So, those are the 5 focus areas that DOE would propose for you all to take a look at in this coming.
Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Christoph, are you ready for yours?
Yes,
Go straight for you.
good evening. We used to have a microphones here, so is my voice carry along? Do you guys hear me?
We have mics on the ceiling now.
Okay,
There's
okay,
one right above you.
just making sure. So, State of Tennessee proposed topics for the Oak Ridge Site-Specific Advisory Board are almost mirroring DOE's topics. We have some small differences in approach. And I will start with the first one, the future disposal for the environmental management generated waste. We would like to have Oak Ridge SSAB providing input on several actions that have to be taken. Record of decision is just like the start in a road. There are gonna be some groundwater studies. We're gonna have a design for land. We will be discussing and negotiating waste acceptance criteria for disposition of the waste. There are still gonna be some hardcore decisions to be made, some compromising, some agreements to be reached. Hence, public input it will be very important, on this journey. The second topic that we are proposing for review deals with the ETTP planned groundwater remedy selections. The record decision for the area K31, K33, it will be a final remedy and work very much in lockstep with DOE and EPA on that final remedy. For the main plant, we're gonna have only an interim record decision. That record decision deals only with the 6 plumes, and mostly the contaminants of concern are chlorinated volatile organic compounds and PEG-99. There are other contaminants. There are, within these plumes, plus there are additional plumes. Last time I was checking was over 13 major plumes at that main plant area. So the concern is that we will not lose the focus that there is a lot of work to be completed, a lot of decisions to be made. We are also concerned about the steady funding environment, steady budgetary environment. Because with that long work, and as Roger mentioned, it's going to take very long for that interim record decision to be implemented. The characterization, evaluation of other plumes and proposed remedies, it's going to take us further in the future, and that process can be quite a bit delayed if we're not going to have a steady funding. The third topic that State of Tennessee suggests is along what Roger mentioned, is the reduction of the excess facilities with risk, the facilities which are in an EM program. Some of them are in a very deteriorated condition, so there's a potential for releases. However, our concern is also with mercury at Y12. A lot of facilities, as Roger mentioned, were used to process mercury, or they were used in a processes that was involving use of mercury. We have mercury in a building walls, in a pipes, we have in the basements, we have in soils. The concern from the State of Tennessee is the adequate management and protection of the discharges from any removal actions at Y12. Currently, the discharges of mercury are above the water quality criteria in the East Fork Poplar Creek. So not only we have an issue of remediation and studies that ORSSAB Aquatic Group is performing on how to remediate existing mercury in the environment, we constantly contributing additional mercury to the stream. There are discharges that are coming from non-source points, they are being flushed out of the source and entering the stream. There are also some discharges from the treatment facilities that, no treatment can remove all the mercury. So there is still contribution of mercury. So the concern is that we might have some more accidents, we might have some additional uncontrolled, unintentional discharges, from the removal actions. And the concern is also that unlike ETTP and ORNL, the cleanup at Y12 is being performed under action memorandum. Is a removal action process. That process does not allow the regulators like TDEC and EPA to approve or disapprove DOE plans. We have the ability to comment, and DOE is very good working with us trying to resolve the issues of bringing to the DOE's attention. However, we don't have a right to approve or tell DOE, sorry, go back to the drawing board. So we are not, as a regulators, we are not in a driver's, driving seat. We are not. We are not confident as much as we are confident with the other sides that we can have, enough say in the cleanup decisions. The fourth topic that we are proposing for your consideration is processing and disposition of transuranic waste. We have tons of transuranic sludges in tanks at ORNL. We have, although that sludge is in a very safe configuration and is monitored, the sludge by itself represents one of the highest levels of risk to public and the environment. We are very much concerned with the ability of DOE to provide the steady funding environment for treatment and disposition of the sludge. And the concern we've got here is that this is not a CERCA process. That waste is not under FFA. This waste is under NSC site treatment plan. So DOE works only with TDEC on this waste. And we do not have strong enough milestones for disposition, for treatment and disposition of this waste as other cleanup projects in the EM program, which means that if we're gonna have any funding reductions for Oak Ridge, some other projects might take a precedence. We are very much concerned with this sludge being finally treated and removed and for final disposition. Hence, we would like to still bring this to the attention of SSAB and DOE, hoping that we can assure some steady financial environment for dealing with this sludge. The fifth topic pertains to the DOE budgets. Our twist or different approach to this topic than DOE's is that we'd like to focus more on project prioritization process. not only on the prioritized projects that DOE presents, we'd like to focus on how that process works to bring these priorities. We'd like to be engaged a little bit and ask SSAB to consider getting involved a little bit earlier in the process, rather than opinionate or act on the priorities that DOE proposes. We would like to be able to be more engaged and have this more as a cooperative approach to prioritizing projects before the priorities are already established and presented for review and an opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kristoff. Ms. Samantha with EPA, are you ready for your presentation, ma'am?
Yeah, I didn't really have a formal presentation, but EPA's priorities pretty much align with what DOE has set out. We've been working collaboratively and, have kind of a group or a tri-party understanding of the priorities being the ENDF, the groundwater, and dealing with the mercury as our top 3 issues of concern, and working through getting these records of decisions done for the groundwater projects. We're in the process of doing that now, and just to make sure that the future groundwater contamination is cleaned up in a way that that is an effective way of treatment, rather than possibly hundreds of years of monitoring. So we you guys have been great in the past about providing comments and suggestions, and we look forward to continue dialogue.
Yeah, thank you. Is that all for your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll open the floor internally here inside the room for any questions for any of the presenters. Questions, comments? Okay, go ahead.
State, the prioritization that you were talking about, that we as a board should get involved earlier, how do you envision that happening? What process do you suggest be used to do that?
Several years ago, we used to have prioritization sessions with DOE and EPA, where we were brainstorming. There was more the brainstorming process. DOE has life cycle baseline for the cleanup. The milestones that are being established for a cleanup, they extend, 3 to 5 years. However, in DOE's life cycle baseline, there are some major points, completion points. There are few of them, and there is nothing in between. To get to some of these completion points, you have to do some work. You have to prioritize work. And we would like to be a little bit more informed and work on some of these life cycle baselines for individual projects. Not having just one big, spreadsheet, with some end dates. It would be nice to have a, ability to review and evaluate and cooperate on a life cycle baseline for individual major projects. That way, DOE can explain to us that, enormous costs and, what is involved in these projects. We could also point to DOE some regulatory midpoints, some points where there will be a need for regulatory decision, there will be need for some documentation. So I'm looking for more of an opportunity to have a collaborative approach, working together, rather than be on a, I guess, end point where DOE already made its mind. I'm not saying that, whatever DOE does, the prioritization is wrong, but we would like to be a little bit, since this is a joint cleanup, we should be working together. I think that our involvement and SSAB involvement could be beneficial to the whole process. And it will be pretty educational too.
May I ask, your recommendations and your comments tonight, are they printed to where the board members could see that?
Yes.
Any more questions inside the room? Ms. Butler?
Kind of a combination of the two of you regarding the waste disposition site. You said additional decisions needed to be made along the way, and I believe one of your priorities was that site as well. Would there be a presentation to us sometime in the next year where you will give us, okay, here's where we are now, here's a decision, we want your recommendation. So are we going to be involved in those subsets of decisions?
Those definitely can be part of the, there is a presentation on waste disposal.
I don't
There is
think-
one.
Yeah, the 5 topics that we're presenting are going to be the 5 presentations we intend
Okay.
to give you.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Right.
And they will, and we can work with Brian Henry, who will, or Dennis May, one of the two who will do that presentation to make sure that we include the as much detail as we can about what are the decision points following that we need to make.
And that particular one's February is when we've got it scheduled. So it'll be at whatever point we are in the process is what we'll present to you at that point.
Okay, so an update, and then here's where we're going.
Yes.
Where you can help.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Does that help you, Christoph? knowing that?
Yes, and we're working with DOE. We're working on it, and I guess we're using the different words, for the same project, but, this project is continuing to be working very well right now. So it's, I was a little bit more wordy trying to put it on the paper than DOE put it, but, this does not mean that I'm contradicting DOE on anything on this recommendation.
Anything else, Ms. Butler?
And I do have one more question, but I don't want to hog the whole show here.
Floor is yours.
You mentioned again, Christoph, concern with the transuranic sludge as being possibly one of the highest levels of risk to the environment, and how you're not working with DOE on that. I guess I didn't understand that. I thought the 3 of you with EPA were all aligned on all the work being done.
EPA is not involved with the true waste disposal project. It is not a CERCLA project. It's being conducted under RCRA and the site treatment plan, which is that's an agreement between the state and DOE. It has milestones in it. It has rules about how waste is characterized and how it'll be disposed, where it'll be disposed, when, things like that. So that's not a project that EPA, as I mentioned, they're not involved in that, but we do, we in the same way that we negotiate and plan our CERCLA cleanup with EPA and the state, the true waste disposal is planned and negotiated with between DOE and the state.
I know that isn't in your budget. That was a line item.
That is a very
You
significant
got
part
the
of our
funding
budget.
for that based on this.
Yes.
So it's not being ignored, it sounds.
No, we actually are being very successful in working down our inventory of, it's broken into 2 major portions. That's what's called contact handled waste and remote handled waste. We have been extremely successful in working down our inventory of contact handled waste. That's waste that the workers can when they're suited up, they can actually go into a room and, with gloves on, they can handle it. The remote handled is more difficult. That's the waste that has to be processed in hot cells with the remote armed. And it just, it's the difference this is the analogy I think of. It's the difference between eating with a fork and eating with chopsticks. I can do a fork very easily, chopsticks. I might starve to death, so that hot cell work is the chopstick. It's very slow, very tedious, very difficult. It requires us to have a high degree of training our workers. The facilities are very expensive to construct, maintain, operate. And typically you're talking about only being able to handle very small quantities of waste, things maybe smaller than this bottle at a time. So it just takes a much longer period of time, much longer schedule to get rid of the remote hand, but we're working that down also. That project is highly dependent though upon our access to WIP out in New Mexico. And as many of you have recalled, WIP had some incidents a few years ago where WIP went offline for about 2 years. Not just for us, I mean for everybody. And that shows some of the difficulties with working off-site disposal, not just our regular stuff, but true is the further you get away from our site and things that are out of our control. I mean, we had to sit down with the state and rework some of our milestones because it wasn't because we couldn't process the waste, but once we can't ship it anymore. That's the only outlet for disposal of true waste. So it's just a very good demonstration of how often there are things that are completely out of the control of Oak Ridge DOE or even DOE headquarters that have significant impacts on programs across the country.
Also, I'd like to add on that. We've done presentations on True before. We try to set up around 5 presentations a year. Okay, normally we try to do 6, but this year it's 5 because of the EM chairs meeting. We always have to have the budget. Because of EMDF's important right now, we've had it on a yearly basis. Same thing with groundwater. So that really only leaves us 2 to rotate between to add new topics. One of those became the excess facilities because we actually had it scheduled for this past June, but then we determined that the groundwater was really important. So we bumped it to be one of ours for next year. If we'd have done this in June, we would have skipped a year before we did excess facilities again. The other one that left us one blank spot on the calendar. And we've had so many of the members want to do the aquatic lab. That's why I put that on there because it's very interesting. It's right up what we need to do right now. And so I put that in that slot. Now the True, because it didn't make this rotation, would be one of the ones I would have on the slate for next year. But if the board wanted to bump the aquatic for True, we could do that. But I think the aquatic we've had more interest in that than True. So that's why it was not on this year's slate. Thank you.
And if I can add, it's just, as Sergeant mentioned, this is one of the most successful projects with processing contact handle and multi-handle debris. However, sludges are a little bit other aspect of this whole project. We are in the initial stages of working on a treatment facility, designing, we just had some work on a mock-up facility, and testing of the process of treatment of the sludge. And the focus from the state perspective is the steady fiscal environment. We were concerned about future delays, resulting from, scarcity of funding, and this project dropping the priorities. So that's the reason we propose this to the board for review. And I guess it's not critical to include it in FY24, if there is no room for this presentation, because this is the long-term project. we simply wanted SSAB to be aware about some high risk waste that is still needs to be addressed and still needs to be dealt with on the operational division.
This whole discussion about budgeting and, thinking about how things really work. Aaron's presentation earlier basically showed a flat budget over the next several years, and I guess it's concerning that in these decisions that we're making, and remedies that we're talking about, as an engineer, many of us have had to make mid-course corrections in plans that we make for these remedies and directions that the project should go. I guess I'm wondering, when those times arise, what process will we use to make mid-course corrections on budgeting that could see the priorities change? And, rob Peter to pay Paul, that type of situation. Do we have that flexibility as a board to, at those times, to recommend different amounts of money? We're talking about groundwater, D&D, transuranics, mercury. What flexibility do we have to recommend those relative amounts of budgeting in those areas be changed?
You have all the flexibility in the world to change what you recommend. It helps to understand, I think, we do have a budget presentation where part of the presentation walks you through our budget cycle and how that operates. One of the things that I don't think we did it this year, we've done it in the past, though, is we break down, and we probably should do this again, I think, because it really does help you understand how things work in Oak Ridge. Is how's the budget broken up in Oak Ridge?
Yeah.
Because one
Does it
thing that
look
helps,
flat?
it really is. It's been very good. It's a very good, right now, we have a very good budget environment. 10 years ago, it was not nearly this good. We were down, our budgets right now are running, as you saw, anywhere from 630s all the way up to 680 millions, 200 billion. 10 years ago, we got down at one point to where we were down like 450. And the real challenge there is EEM is responsible for certain things on the reservation, what we call, you may first speak of this, hotel costs. It is the cost of just keeping the doors open. There are safety issues. One of the things we have to make sure all the facilities are safe. So just for the people to be in, things like that. And that actually accounts for a significant portion of our budget. EM operates the liquid and gaseous waste disposal facilities at ORSSAB. That's tens of millions of dollars. One of the reasons we want the U233 project that we brief you on occasionally, that project eats up about $50 million. And that's whether we're making any progress on that or not. That most of that cost is security. And these are all costs that once you add those up, those account for roughly somewhere between $200 and $300 million a year for us. And those are costs that are not flexible. We have, we will shut down. I'm not saying we will, but if it came down to it, we would shut down, clean up, and maintain those projects. We just have. It's the projects above that line that where the flexibility, and that's where we want. That's where your input really influences. What are the things that get done above that? And again, if things, most of you have been around, safety is a huge, enormous factor for us. Maintaining the facilities in safe configuration. getting, we know we release mercury from Y12. We need to stop that. And first step in that is taking down these buildings so we can get the sources in the buildings gone and the sources underneath the buildings. So that's one of the reasons that that's a high priority for us. So we know we're releasing. Christoph pointed out, we're not meeting ambient water quality criteria at the boundary of the plant. We need to. It's a long haul to get there, but it's going to be, that's one of the ones we need to get done.
I guess I'm just concerned about if I need 20 million more to worry about mercury, how do my only option is the recommendation as a board. Is that correct?
Yes.
And once you go through the budget cycles, like they did with us at headquarters in Washington, each site is bargaining for what funding they get.
Yeah.
So we learn a very good exercise there. Just because they need it, they want it, they have to have it, doesn't necessarily mean, from what I learned from the past chairs meeting, that DOE Oak Ridge will even receive it. So, that's a very good exercise that I can't remember who was with me in Washington, that the board would learn a lot from, just seeing what these folks go through to try to get some of those line item budgets going.
Well, I know what it's like to fight for budgets.
It was, and to what Chairman Shields just pointed out, it'd be great to be able to sit here and tell you that EM, we're just one big happy family.
Yeah.
But the reality is,
I've worked at many of the other sites,
yeah,
so
you realize the reality is there is more than just a little bit of backstabbing that goes on when it comes budget time. And we have no qualms about taking money from Savannah River or Hanford or anybody else.
Well, we
to
just
fund our
need
cleanup.
to make sure we recommend to keep our budgeting
Yes,
stable
yes,
and increasing if needed.
yes.
I think from my review of what I've witnessed, I think we have 4 or 5 things going great in our favor. Number one, we have a great success record of what they have cleaned up, what they've done.
Yeah.
K25 and ETTP is the model child for EM cleanup. Everywhere you go on a national level or any cleanup meeting, as you go as a board member, you're going to hear Oak Ridge is a success. I think we've had some political leaders that was chair of appropriations and has passed the torch, and they're stepping down to where we have some legislators that's trying to help with the mission at Oak Ridge. They may not necessarily be local boys, but they represent local values.
Yeah.
And so some of that federal funding is coming from some of those boards. So I think the best thing as citizen board members can do is those legislators that we're voting in is helping them with their continued mission. So, Fleischman is one of the ones that I see at a lot of the DOE or the EM or the EPA cleanups. He's very passionate about it. And to my understanding, when I first come on the board, Alexander was a great person that, as chairman of the appropriations, gave DOE phenomenal money. Now, I may be telling that wrong, but just from my spectatorship, I think we're very fortunate. When we start going to Paducah site, when we start going to Savannah River, the biggest thing they say in the chairs meetings is, we need money. Please give us money. And I went to the Radways in Nevada one time, and it was almost a battle between 4 or 5 sites because Hanford wasn't getting any funding and begging for it, and Oak Ridge had $600 million. I mean, you're an enemy when it comes to the money room. So hats off to you guys. Thank you for what you do and continue to do. I realize after Washington, y'all have a hard task to try to get that money. So for the essence of time, let's go real quick online. Go ahead, Bartholomew.
Quick question, just based on what you think, budget versus additional waste, do you think it's outpacing you gaining with the budget in respect to the budget?
I'm not sure I'm following.
Well, the additional, what's happening with the mercury, is the budget enough budget to keep up or accomplish additional, maybe.
I will say this, we can always use more money. I mean, we get, the more money we have, the more work we can get accomplished. To what the chairman said, the amount of money we're getting right now, we are being extremely successful. And that's one of the reasons we keep getting money, is that, it presents problems. It's called the winner's challenge, or the winner's problem, is that we get more money, gives us more work to do, we tear down more. We fill up our on-site disposal facility faster. And, one of the things, and we've talked about this, one of our challenges is to make sure we build this new one in time, so that we can, I guess no good deed goes unpunished is one way of looking at it, but we do, I mean, we are trying. We do have good appropriators who look favorably on what we're doing here. And a lot of that has to do with our recent success. But we have enough money to execute the baseline that we currently have. So I don't anticipate, unless something drastic changes, I don't anticipate us having a decline in cleanup effort right now.
And, I encourage the new members, as you travel to a lot of these other presentations, the meetings, the chairs meetings, different things, you hear what Oak Ridge Reservation has done to try to stack the deck to make sure that funding they get, they already have the workforce, they already have the training. They already have that project ready for that workforce to step right in. So there's no downtime. They're using every dollar they can, the best they can. So there's so much more technical definition to that. But I think the others that's been with me for the past few years, you can't go anywhere and not realize Oak Ridge has been a success in the deal. So back online, anyone online, for anyone in the room for any questions, we'll keep them brief in the last few moments. Last call for questions.
Everyone that responded to me said they didn't have questions.
Okay, all right. Miss Melissa, you want to take process for the plan?
Yes. So what we'll do now is, we've come up with our 5 topics. We will lay out a work plan. With that work plan, we will have a presentation meeting, which would be your second Wednesday of the month. Then we will have, if it's appropriate for that topic, a tour sometime in that 2 weeks before the second Wednesday and the third Wednesday, when you have your even stewardship meeting, where you dive into more detail. We won't have a presentation on the budget month. Depending on what's going on with the groundwater, we might or might not. It depends on what they're talking about at that time. We will definitely have a presentation for the aquatic facility, and that has always been one of our best tours. If any way possible, you can go to that. Right now, we've got that scheduled during the month of April. So what we have is November, we have the excess facilities, which was supposed to be in June. We bumped it to November. February, we're going to have the EMDF again. Then we will have the budget in the March timeframe, because that's always the time that the earliest they can start rolling out information to us. April will be the aquatics facility. Right now, May is an off month, because of the fact the spring chairs meeting could tentatively be during that month. So we're looking to see what happens there. And then June, we will have another groundwater update to what's happened over the last year for the groundwater issue. Since True seems to be something you're interested in, I can put that as the October 2024, tentatively put that in that slot. It won't be a part of this work plan because we do it for the fiscal year, but I'll have it on hold to be like the first one in October, so that it'll probably rotate out with what the excess facilities, because we don't normally do one back to back on that. So that's what, now also with this, you'll have issues at groups like we've had established for each presentation topic. So you know what the topics are at this point. If you know what you want to be on the issue group, go ahead and email Shelley and Sarah and tell them which issue groups you're going to have. Because when we do the work plan, we'll have an issue group and we'll have it listed. The work plan's a living document. So if you don't get it to her in the next week or so, continue to update it. But if you do know what issue groups you want to be on, go ahead and let the staff know so that we can get those on the document. Our plan is we will sign the document, the work plan. We usually sign it right prior to the first monthly meeting, which that'll be in November. We may be able to get to sign it earlier, but with the chairs meeting, that's kind of got us tied up a little bit on that. So, but anyway, that's where we are on the process and the plan going forward. And we'll have a draft work plan out to you within the next week or so.
If I can comment on the issue groups as well, we've learned in the past that sometimes it's a challenge to get people involved in the issue groups. So as the retiring veteran members, we would encourage, if you're an office holder, be part of all the issue groups. It's not more work, it's just more involvement to where you can learn more. It helps you be a better leader in the organization, number one. And if you're passionate about something, please make sure you get with Miss Shelley or Miss Sarah and sign up on those issue groups, because a lot of times there'll be one or two people. But when you brainstorm, as Christoph says, when you get everybody kind of on there on the conversation, it's amazing what ideas can be brought to the table. So I encourage you all to be active with issue groups. And if Miss Shelley and Miss Sarah, if they don't change it, you just reach out to them and tell them what issue groups you want to be associated with, and they'll tag you on those.
If you're already on some, we do usually roll those over from year to year, but you're welcome at any time to leave an issue group or join a different one or any of that. It's really up to you.
And you can be on as many issue groups as you want. We encourage you to at least be part of one of them.
Any public comment area?
We do have a public comment.
Keep it brief, Luther.
Keep it brief. I don't want to think. I'm really stuck in the past. In the year 2000, planning for the retreat, there was a stakeholder survey sent out to the public, mailed out to over 455 organizations and individuals, and there were 75 responses gotten back, and that was then. This is now. I just did a comment that got into the packet, and I'm all getting more topics before, forming committees, working these things if they're not right to be worked, for the entire field. That's just me. I'm not going to read what's in the comment though, but I'll just like briefly go over each of the topics, and talk a few sentences about them. Well, one was interdependency of DOE sites. That's an important topic to be informed about when you're engaging other stakeholders in DOE communities, such as at the chairs meetings and in your travel opportunities. There's a long history of cooperations and standoffs between the sites on doing things they can do for each other. We accept the waste to burn in incinerator and send to the commercial facilities in Roane County here, and we ship waste to places, and we've had disputes with Nevada and different places right about accepting waste and everything from time to time, pissed off. Not your head. Anyhow, and I think it's something that's become hard to follow since he transferred authority from newly generated waste, to the generators, and places like CNS got in trouble sending the wrong things to the Nevada test site. There. So anyway, natural resource damage assessment. I've talked about that before. It's a complex process. It's difficult to understand. Continued stakeholder engagement and understanding as the projects are implemented is something that's very important. Mercury, we talk about mercury here, but there's mercury all around. DOE EM has an expression of interest out for capability for long-term storage and management of domestic elemental mercury waste. And there's been interest expressed by commercial entities in Roane County to do that. And a resolution passed by City Council opposing it. Just in context, there are tons used in mercury in the spallation neutron source target, and there's been a defense stockpile stored in Y12. So that's all around. It needs to be considered in context of all the other mercury. Emergency management, that covers the whole reservation, but it's a good time now to re-engage the public on what to do in case of an emergency on Hill Ridge Reservation. There's outdated information in the public domain. EM has a role, but the science and NNSA are also involved. an all-day public forum or an SSAB meeting that has been used to cover that topic in the past. The board used to review the annual site environmental report. I don't think it's overreach to learn about the overall Oak Ridge Environmental Reservation environmental performance. The Oak Ridge Site Specific Advisory Board monthly meetings have been used for presenters from ORNL, ETTP, and Y12 prime contractors to summarize their performance. We studied the report and made recommendations to make it publicly friendly. Implementation of long-term stewardship. I'll just refer you to the public involvement plan there and the the vision says that for the Citizens Board for Stewardship and transition to legacy management. So I really question how that's going to take place. And the impact of remediation and in-state development on ETTP and vice versa. Work remains out there and having worked out there and now looking at the property map and seeing it's all privately owned, just it's just had an effect on me. But anyway, though, how does private ownership affect in that development affect remediation? How are we going to affect their development? That's something to stay on top of. And then finally, there's also been a lot of surplus recyclable materials, managed and accumulated from time to time. I think there's an active procurement out right now for surface contaminated nickel, what to do with that. But there's been, steel, nickel, aluminum, even excess items like sodium reactor shielding. It's been like a shell game to follow these things around and determine what happened to them. And some of the directives go way back to Bill Richardson when he was the Energy Secretary. That's limiting the things that can be done to those things. And I'm just asking, is there potential for appropriate stakeholder involvement in revisiting some of these release standards? And of course, I support looking at the budget, and we used to have a public meeting on the life cycle baseline Herald, when I chaired, and it then got procurement sensitive. So,
Thank you, Luther.
all right.
That's 5 minutes and 10 seconds. You timed it just right. I'll let you have those last 10. All right, so that closes out the public comment. This ends the presentation portion. So thank you for our presenters for attending. We'll go straight into our board business. Ms. Noel, you want to speak about nominations?
Yes. You'll see this piece of paper, this in your package. It's got the officer elections. Right now, we have currently one person for each position. So that's the minimum we have to have, where, we could go forward and vote on that in the November election. But you have time between now and that time if you want to run for one of the boards, to have your name submitted. We will also take nominations in November at the beginning of the board meeting. For anybody who wants to, we just prefer to go ahead and get them on the candidates so that we know that so people have the information to know that there's going to be choices to make. We will take that vote at the beginning of the November meeting, and then the candidates who are selected will take over running the meeting at that time. Let's see. Okay. That's all I have on that.
Ms. Butler, you want to brief us on the recommendations, please?
Sure. We do have a recommendation one for the two groundwater projects, the first at the main plant area and the second at K31, K33. This is after two separate board meeting presentations from Roger on each. Thank you, Roger, and also a very nice and informative tour. So always my brain just expands tenfold after we meet with you. Thank you. After the board meetings, we met the Environmental Management Stewardship Committee twice, once on each topic, and the issue groups communicated via several emails, sometimes many, maybe, right, Harold? Anyway, we decided to combine the two recommendations into one document, and that's what you see here in your packet. I am more than happy to read the recommendation if you'd like, but in the interest of time, just like to read it on your own. Totally up to you.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Butler on that topic, if you've read it? Anything else, Ms. Butler?
No, that's it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sharp, any comments on Ian?
Just that the next meeting date has been rescheduled to 29th.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Loman,
Wait.
meeting minutes.
We need to vote on the recommendation.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor to approve the recommendation by Ms. Butler's request? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. If you're online, please raise your hand.
You have Attilio, and let me double check with him.
It's unanimous in the room. It's
Yeah, he also, put his hand in.
so we'll go straight to the meeting minutes. Ms. Loman.
So a copy of the June 14 meeting minutes is included in your packet. If you've had a chance to review those, that's certainly beneficial. I have reviewed these myself and believe them to be a true and accurate reflection of conversation and discussion. To solicit first.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I move as such.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say, or raise your hand. Start to say aye. Any online, please raise your hand.
Yes.
All approved. Like Mr. Sharp said, the date rescheduled for November the 29th, which will be the next meeting. Ms. Noy, you want to talk about closing remarks before we talk about the photo, and we'll go ahead and brief on the chairs.
Just that we have the chairs meeting scheduled the first week of October. It's an excellent opportunity to be able to come in and see how those meetings are handled. I think it's the third is the tour.
Third is the tour.
The fourth is the meeting for the full day meeting, and then there'll be a half a day meeting on the 5th. And then there's a dinner on Wednesday night. Information will be coming if you want to participate in that. It's one of those where you'll get an event right, and you go in and you pay the fee for the dinner to get a ticket, and then you can come.
Can we drop in and out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the way they set it up is kind of a U shape for the chair and the vice chair of each of the boards. Then there'll be some areas of some chairs in the back for the public.
Okay.
And you can come in and out.
But for the event, right, if you want to go on the tour or have the dinner, that's like, we need that different deadline. So, but as you said, I send that out, I'm hoping next week.
I encourage you to come, especially if you're going to travel to the other chairs meeting. It's a great prep to see what you're going to encounter there as an office holder here. So that way, when you travel to another state, represent Oak Ridge, you're kind of on your best game and represent us well. So I'd encourage everybody to attend. You really enjoy the feedback. You get to see what the other chairs and the vice chairs are facing in their national labs or their locations. But it's really a good networking, it's a good connection, and it's a good learning place to come back home and help. Any other comments, Ms. Melissa?
Yeah.
So if you will, I think Ms. Shelley's wanting to take a new group photo.